Here for you. Come out of ladies' way. Oh, I forgot my book. Bear with me. I'll be back in 20 seconds. Count. No, sorry about that. Bending my post. Very good. Let's see how we're doing here. Yeah, good to go there, Shane. Chatechesis it is. Welcome, good morning. Thanks for that, Shane. Good to have your company here on Radio Maria Ireland. Father Eamonn with you now for our 11:15 Chatechesis moment here each morning indeed. Except for Monday mornings. Mondays I usually take a day off and I'm away. And then it's the occasional odd morning. Of course, Sunday morning we have Mass, so again it's 5 mornings a week at best. So anyway, it's good. We just keep the conversation going and we invite you in on that conversation and invite you to be very much part of Radio Maria here and to engage with us. So again, the usual numbers, I hope you have them written down, hope you have them to hand there. 089 467 2000, the text and WhatsApp number. And just put a +353 in front of that if you're in the north or outside of Ireland itself. 89 467 2000. The landline number here to give a call is 014 123 456 014 123 456. Again, put a +53 in front of that. Mary will chat to you there down the phone there if you want to have a call. Give a call to an email info@radiomaria.ie. Write to us, of course, as well. St. Anthony's Business Park, Ballymount Road, Dublin 22. We do like to get correspondence from you as well. And thanks indeed to all of you who do write to us and share your own insights and reactions to us as well. So I heard from a Jesuit priest there this morning. I don't have to hand there now, but sent a nice little booklet on St. Ignatius of Loyola. His feast day will be coming up this month as well, 500 years, of course. And we'll be glad to celebrate some of that with you. Maybe see he might join with us, maybe on the radio too. We're all the time making new friends. I hope you were listening this morning and joined in and saw our friends from the Servants of the Lord and the Virgin Matara. A new community, well, I suppose relatively new. They're here in Ireland since 2008 and living in a small, two of them living together in parish house down there in Bunclody in County Wexford. And like that, small seeds, small beginnings, always that's the way things grow and develop. And they're hoping to expand just a little bit and to begin a refuge for homeless women or for women recovering from addiction, drug addiction particularly, specializing in that area of ministry. So please God, that'll be a lovely ministry if it can see the end of the tunnel there. There's been, I know, a lot of work done to help get things established and to make a beginning. But certainly it'll bring lovely blessings and grace-filled blessings to many souls, I'm sure. So please God, we keep that in prayer. And fine young women. I mean, it's marvelous to see that the Lord, if He's not, or at least if His call isn't being heard here, it's certainly being heard elsewhere. And to see these young women courageously coming to Ireland. And a common theme, and just lovely to see it, that these sisters realizing the debt that the church in foreign fields owes to Irish missionaries, and coming here then to repay that debt and to help re-enkindle and to rediscover again our faith and our heritage here. So isn't that a great blessing indeed? That's just such great generosity. We had that, of course, that conversation, if you remember, with Father Richard Kocher, the priest director of Radio Maria in Germany. Is known as Radio Horeb there, and he was speaking about St. Kilian. And I just was always very grateful and thanking him for the support of Radio Horeb and the listeners and the prayers that we received through them, and I suppose continuing to receive, and the donations that actually helped us begin here and have sustained us for some time. And thanking him, and he said, listen, we thank you, because it's our way of at least giving something back for the gift of faith that St. Kilian brought to us in the Dark Ages from Ireland. So talk about, an investment into the future. When the Lord speaks about 100-fold, there you go. If you invest in the area of faith, who knows but what the return might be, Interesting, share that little small experience, I suppose, myself. And I encourage you to share your little experiences as well, how your faith investment has paid you back, and maybe in ways that beyond your reckoning and beyond your ability to see. Shane was just chatting to me yesterday about revisiting the confession CD. It does need revisiting. It's got a little bit dated. The content, I think, is pretty good, but there's elements of it that we just changed to try to bring it a little bit more up to date. And he said, well, look, you've got great mileage out of it, which is true. And I know that a wonderful talk on confession, the healing power of confession, has done the rounds. And our dear friend, who I hope indeed is enjoying a just and a high reward in heaven, Eamonn Hennessy, was a terrific apostle of that little CD, which one of the first talks I gave here on Radio Maria back in 2015, just about the healing power of confession, which we play back every first Friday. So you'll hear it again today, if you haven't already heard it on air. I wonder, is it on the list here? Just looking down the list in front of me. But it features on the first Friday, and the idea is to encourage, my idea at least, to say to Ian, to drop it into the system there and let it replay from time to time, so that people might be encouraged with the regularity and the idea of frequenting confession with regularity, and the great blessing and healing and grace that it brings to us. So I take Shane's advice there aboard. Maybe time to revisit that and redo it, taking the same theme, I suppose, but just working it into our current situation, given that there's been such a lot of water under the bridge, especially the last 2 years with the virus and everything else, and that whole saga kind of continuing really all the while. So how are we to address the area of getting to confession in these days? Wow. Anyways, thanks be to God, things have opened up a little bit more, and we're a little bit freer to move around and to share and to hopefully return back to some sense of normality. Although we see that confessions and First Communions, the sacramental celebration, have been postponed, and it's nothing, as I understand it, has nothing to do with the actual sacraments themselves, but the disappointment comes in because, as Archbishop Eamonn Martin was speaking yesterday on national radio, how the promise had been that in July there would be a loosening of restrictions and a possibility then to catch up on the backlog of many sacraments, baptisms, first confession, I suppose, First Holy Communion, and confirmation. And again, it just suffered a setback this week, and it's been frustrating for many, and understandably so. And as I understand it, the principal reason is just to try to avoid gatherings. The social gatherings accompany these occasions. And as we know, I think in Ireland, indoor dining in public restaurants still hasn't been allowed to reopen. So that's one of the factors. So I wonder, is there some other way around that? Can it be organized in some way? I was reading about a priest there. He'd organized, I think, 85 different ceremonies. How he was going to fit them all in, I have no idea. For small groups, you see, whatever parish he was in. And that was, I think he was adding up baptisms and first communions, maybe first confessions too, and confirmations. That's a lot of work. That's a lot of work. And there'd been phone calls, and he had volunteers into the sacristy and his office arranging all of these things. And then, the news then that, look, no, it has to be postponed for another while. And all ostensibly, again, to protect the health and well-being of everyone. And please God, that is the case, and that's continuing to be the case, and that, again, risk is being diminished, let's say. you know, the way, I don't know if you've come across these things, kind of a relatively new idea where you do a risk assessment in your company or in your business or in your premises, or, you know. And so I suppose part of the risk assessment as well, how do we mitigate any danger and excessive dangers maybe in relation to the virus and so on. So if that's one of the measures that needs to be taken, it's a hard pill to swallow. It's not an easy one by any means. And indeed, people are right to speak their minds and to come forward and to engage in the conversation, but I would say charitably so, and with a view to, you know, hearing every aspect of the situation and responding to it accordingly. So our hearts go out to all of these afflicted families and parishes too, and our prayers accompany you all. And we just assure you indeed that we are with you in solidarity in these difficult days. And that indeed, you know, we look on the brighter side of things, that things are opening up a little bit more, and it seems as if indeed cases aren't as frequent, so maybe all that is good news too. So we just wait and see. We hope and pray. We hope and pray, and I think that's the key thing. And we, again, are very practical and very, you know, honest and very, you know, calm about these things too, because I don't think generating heat is the way to go myself. Again, you can understand naturally why people would get frustrated and why there would be protests and all these things. I can, you know, accept that that's a possibility, but it's far better to engage in some kind of creative dialogue and try to understand the situation from all sides, and then try to move forward, you know, peaceably, let's say. That it really doesn't do any good to foment reaction or, you know, sort of militant, I don't know, sort of anger, the sort of anger that is reactive and just hurts ourselves and hurts others. So that's not helpful. If you think from the context of the family or the home, you know, I'm sure tempers do flare up in any good home perhaps from time to time, but there's always regret afterwards. It's one of those things that it's not the it's not the answer. It vents feelings, I suppose. Maybe it clears the air, they say, maybe. But we'd hope that there'd be other more constructive ways to approach these things. So just all these things are worth keeping in mind, and that's where our prayer, that's where our faith helps to keep us somewhat some kind of equanimity at play and at work, and hopefully common sense and reason and trust as well, trust in the Lord. So that's one of the tasks at hand right there. The Pope's prayer intentions for July. Now I'll just touch in on this. It's great. You know, each month the Pope has a new prayer intention, and if you join for our rosary here at lunchtime every day, we add in the latest Pope's intentions at the beginning of the rosary. You know, the little part of the rosary there, the Our Father, 3 Hail Marys, and the Glory Be. We offer those for the Holy Father's intentions. So this month it's to do with social friendship, and the Pope has put up a little video message in relation to that. He likes to do that. I think it was a great idea. Like these short, like a TikTok, Instagram, short and sweet kind of thing. But he urges that in social and economic and political situations of conflict, exactly what I've been speaking about, we may be courageous and passionate architects of dialogue and friendship against polarization and populism. So that really touches in on exactly what I've been hinting towards there. That a dialogue that's courageous, yes, and passionate, yes, but a dialogue of friendship, So there's no reason at all why we can't hold differing views, but I suppose the task is to be open to hearing opposing views, and then to be open to finding a pathway to truth. Sometimes it might mean a bit of, you know, not compromising. You know, there are moral truths and absolutes that we hold dear in the doctrine of our faith that we are not willing to give ground on, you know, because to do so would undermine truth itself. And that's a very important message for those who like to argue or who like to differ to hear. You see, the danger is, and I might just touch in on this for you, that if everything becomes subjective, by which I mean that if everything just becomes my opinion versus your opinion, and it's just one big sea of opinions, where do you end up? What are you left with if it's just a sea of opinions. And what I believe is as good as what anyone else believes. And in the end, you've nothing really. It's like shifting sand. Like quicksand. As soon as you stand on it and move on it, well, you start to sink. And you end up maybe with a kind of a populist approach, which is kind of like the mob. And the mob takes on board whatever issue, whatever point is at stake, and the mob rules then. That's the populist approach. And that tends to be dominated by passion and emotion rather than by reason and objectivity, see? So when it becomes a subjective world, that there are no moral absolutes, there is no absolute truth, then there's no goalposts, you see. Boundaries become, well, there's no boundaries either. They become fudged, or, where are the limits anymore to anything? If it's subjective, well, we can begin to justify almost any kind of morality that suits us, even when it's abhorrent to our nature. And this is the danger. When we eliminate God from the conversation, we begin to deny the roots of our sense of right and wrong, because there are sociologists who will say, look, it's just social conditioning that we have a sense of what's right and what's wrong. But there's an objective sense that we know it's not right to steal. We know it's not right to kill. We know it's not good to get angry. On self-righteous anger, that is. Excuse me. Just clear that out. Sorry about that. So and this is what I mean by objectivity. That you can take two people from different cultures and different sides of the world, different languages, and you can bring them together, and they will know that we want to respect each other as we would want to be respected. So already you're setting up the parameters and boundaries for an objective truth. That because of the dignity of you and your personhood and the respect I would like to receive because of the dignity of my personhood, I then owe you the very same respect. That's a moral truth there. It's a boundary right there. And the interesting thing, actually, if you say that there are no moral boundaries, if you say that there is no objective truth, well, you're making an objective truth of that statement. You're saying it's objectively true that there is no objective truth. And you see how the argument falls down. It collapses in on itself and becomes worthless. It's to say that you can't have an objective truth saying there's no objectivity. So this is what's happening in general. You can see this kind of approach is leading to all kinds of false and fake approaches to moral questions. It becomes the voice of the mob, again, the populist idea, whatever the majority think. Isn't that interesting how the Lord asked the same question, who do people say I am? What does the mob think? What's the popular view? What's the latest opinion poll? And the Lord didn't stop there, Some say, well, the answer was, some say you're John the Baptist, some say Elijah. Our opinion is divided. And this is precisely the point, that when it comes to subjectivity like that, opinion is divided. It doesn't unite. How can that be helpful? How can we move forward together if we're divided as to where the moral boundaries are? So the Lord adds to that question then, who do you say I am? And so what is your personal view or take on this? And then the third question, which he didn't ask, which is obvious enough really, was, who am I? What is the objective truth here? Peter, of course, answered, and it was the grace of the Father that helped him in his answer. You are the Christ, the Son of the living God. That's a question everybody on this planet has to address and has to ask themselves, which boils down in another way to saying who or what is the source of absolute truth. And that's God. Christ is God made flesh. He says of himself, I am the way, the truth, and the life. Now, has any other person in history, anyone, name them if you know, said the same thing about themselves? I am the way, the truth. Take the great leaders of our history books, all the Caesars in Rome, all the great dictators down through the centuries. Did anyone say that they were the way, the truth, and the life? They're dead and buried. They're gone. Their thinking and their ideologies are no more, many of them. We see some of these ideologies resurfacing, of course, at times too, in different forms, different shapes. But that's what they become, ideologies, populist thinking, and not based altogether. Some elements of truth in it. That's why they're attractive at all in the first place, because there is truth woven through them. But is it objective truth? Is it truth that stands the test of reason and also faith? There's the question for us. This is kind of at the heart, really, is at the heart of a lot of these moral questions which surround us today. Where can I find the truth in relation to our being and our action, our behavior? So morality is all about seeking the good and doing the good. So can you see how that works? If it's just about opinions, and I'm not against opinions, it's good. Opinions are a pathway to truth. And this is the Pope's really prayer intention, because opinions mean that, well, look, there can be dialogue and hopefully friendship. And he's talking about social, economic, and political spheres where there's conflict. Let the opinions come forward, let the points of view be shared, but let there be a point of reference that is fixed and, again, absolute. That's what I mean by objective truth. So for us as followers of Christ, Matthew got it immediately in the gospel today. Come follow me. He left all his taxes and all the counting of money on the table there. He got up and he followed the Lord. He found what he was looking for. No doubt he was engrossed in the world of fleecing people and charging people, and Zacchaeus, remember Zacchaeus, man, he had done a share of swindling in his day, but promised to give half what he had to the poor and to pay back 4 times the amount to all those he had cheated. Wow, there's recompense right there. There's reparation. Matthew probably had the same journey, and he left everything right there and followed the Lord. So there's our task, there's our calling, that we look to Jesus Christ. We of faith, he is the source of truth. And he's the rock, you see, that stands unmoved and unshaken, even when the world around us seems to be imploding or capsizing or falling apart. Take whatever image you want with that. And it seems like, where are the boundaries anymore? Is there any hope for us? You can get quite melancholic about these things and wonder what on earth. But always keep in mind, that back through the years of history, they turn back the pages of time. And sure, circumstances were different, but I think the same questions simply continue to arise. And our task for our day and our time, the short lifespan that's given to us, is to seek to draw as many souls to Jesus, the truth, as we reasonably can, by God's grace too, because that's all a grace exchange as well. So the gift of the radio is a lovely means, a very gentle means, but a way of doing just that. And engaging, like the Pope says, in social friendship. So that's why I say our conversation here is two-way, and we do like to hear from you, and we do love to continue the conversation in that way. So the Pope is calling for an end to polarization, that divides us. That's not helpful. And urges prayers that there be no space for enmity at war. Brothers in arms is what we speak about, although maybe that has a different connotation too. So he calls on us to become architects of friendship and of peace, to solve conflicts and the causes of division that exist in society and among individual people. And it won't just be opinions, it'll actually be a material need and physical need too, that will need some kind of recompense or some kind of a restoration as well. So the Holy Father asking that we pray to construct the common good with all people and extend a hand to one another, and especially to always be at the side of the most impoverished and vulnerable, those on the peripheries. That's his favorite activity. So the preferential option for the poor. That helps to bridge some of those divides and some of that division there as well. So we're going to pause for a little piece of music. Shane is very kindly looking after the mixing desk for us today. We've got a beautiful new CD from Eamonn Lee. Eamonn Lee, as you know, we play quite often here on Radio Mail. They published a new CD with some beautiful Irish pieces there. So Shane has one of those lined up for us. Again, if I can invite you to text us on 089 467 2000. Drop a comment or a like here on Facebook or YouTube if you're watching in now or watching later. By all means, drop in a little comment there, a like or a share, and so on too. You can telephone 014 123 456. You can write to us at St. Anthony's Business Park, Ballymount Road, Dublin 22. Now, is somebody saying they're having a problem with Facebook on the phone? Yes, you can maybe send comments from your own Facebook page, or you can link in that way too and share the link. Or indeed, by send us a message through the normal text service here as well. So thanks, Shane. A little piece of music just to tide us over for a little while, and back with you again very shortly. Lovely piece of music there. You hear us singing that on a Friday morning to Yes Dlan Macrisha. So Jesus, Dlan, clean, Macrisha, my heart. Krisha is a kind of a nice, loving way of speaking of the heart. Kri would be the sort of direct word. Krisha would be, I don't know how you translate that. Macrisha, my loving heart, I suppose. Studaquia, my hail, you know, sort of just guide me through my life. So that's Eamonn Lee, Fuaimlaoi, Eamonn Lee, if you want to just Google that, and you can order their CD online. And this is their second CD. It's called At the End of the Sky. And Rona McDonough is the composer there, and beautiful choir indeed. And they sing, I'm probably not singing these days, but perform. Perform is the wrong word too. Tara will take me to task on that. She's going to speak a bit more about that, please God. They sing at and participate in the liturgy perhaps at 11 o'clock on a Sunday morning in Clarendon Street there, the Carmelites. Now perhaps they haven't returned for some time, or maybe there's just a lower, might be one or two of them perhaps still singing there as well. So very good. Thanks indeed for getting in touch, and thanks for being a part of Radio Maria here. I'm just checking for messages and exchanges here. Let me see. So Gurpreet is watching. Vincent Hayes is in tune as well. Magella, thank you. Nice to have you with us here. And who else is there with us? Dobry as well. And Christine is watching in here on Facebook as well. Thanks indeed for that. And thanks to Mary downstairs just sending that up to me as well. So Patrick is listening in, Kerry as well, and just finding the conversation interesting. Francesco sent a nice message there from South Korea. As you know, Francesco Francesco is a regular listener to us as well. Thanks for that too. Just reminding us of Pontius Pilate. Remember that? Jesus before Pontius Pilate. Jesus saying, all who are on the side of the truth, listen to my voice. And Pontius Pilate's, a really ultimate question, isn't it? Truth, what is that? That's it is very well dramatized actually in the Passion of the Christ. Quid est veritas? Veritas means truth. What is truth? And you see, it's a scene, it's not scriptural, but you see a scene later on that Mel Gibson put into that movie where Pontius Pilate is with Claudia, his wife, and quid est veritas, Claudia? He's just perplexed. What is truth? And he said, well, I know what my truth is, that Caesar in Rome is going to have my life if I don't quell this opposition here. That my blood would be in his hands. Pontius Pilate just didn't. He had truth standing in front of him, staring him in the face, as we say, and couldn't see it, didn't get it. So let that be, a reminder to us as well when we're staring in the face of truth in Christ and we somehow don't get it, or that there are others who just grapple and can't seem to get there either. They're struggling with the idea of truth. What is that? And is there any truth? And sadly, I suppose our day is just replete with fake news, of course, is a common feature nowadays. We have to be so discerning in relation to what's coming our way by way of information. The internet, of course, will give you every which flavor you want. And you can join your own little, what was the Pope calling it there? Your own little populist, movement to share all your ideas. When it's perhaps better just to kind of relax, do you know what I mean? To sort of step back and stay calm and hear, the reasonable voices from every direction, the reasonable ones. The crazy ones, better to just move on from those. Again, there may be truth in those as well, but a lot of energy being invested in trying to like mining gold, and try to siphon it out. If we can hear at least reasonable voices, which ring true for a start, and then always bringing everything to the light of the gospel and the experience of the church, as she has lived through these moments many, many, many times before, and brought all of these things to the light of the gospel many times before. And so we have a sure guide there in the voice of the church, a sure model, a sure direction there that we can just take up. So just to keep that in focus. So the Pope is saying, look, this is what we got to pray for, and he's right. So he's issued to us, a singular warning, I suppose, really, or just a exhortation. We see, for example, how quickly those among us with the status of stranger, immigrant, refugee can become a threat and take on the status of an enemy. Now, is that fair? The truth is that if we were that stranger, if we were that, and we Irish know that well, it's a different story when the boot is on the other foot. So the Pope has been concerned with these things, migration, and with concern how polarization and enmity like that were like a virus invading our way of thinking. That's a great analogy. It works. We get that immediately. This, again, false, poisoned kind of thinking is what he's saying. And a way of feeling and of acting too. So in his message, the Holy Father points out that today, part of our politics, society and media dedicate themselves to creating enemies so as to defeat them in a game of power. I don't know if you ever came across that idea. People setting up what they call a straw man. So setting up a false argument in order to demolish it and say, well, look here, I have the right answer. That can't be. That's again, not constructive. St. Thomas Aquinas had what he called his scholastic method, which is very different. He'd set up the hardest argument possible against the issue at hand, and then he would seek to dismantle that in the light of truth, in the light of the gospel. Very different approach. So this is why the Pope says we need to build social friendship which is so necessary for living together well, and a friendship that can serve as a bridge to continue creating a culture of encounter. Again, openness, you see, which will bring us closer above all to those who are on the peripheries, the most impoverished and the vulnerable as well. So there you are, there's the Pope's exhortation, the prayer for the month of July. So these aren't just sort of random prayers plucked out of the sky that, the Pope sort of says, okay, we've got 12 months here, let me just write down a bunch of intentions. Not so. These touch in on core questions and core issues for us to engage with and grapple with ourselves. So thanks for writing in, thanks for texting in. If you're listening back again, do please get in touch with us here. I think there's another little message or two coming in there. Let me just quickly check. Not sure because they're coming in at us from all different angles. Yeah, that's a good response as well, Francisco. Maybe we, like the modern person or the modern world, represent Pilate. That we have the truth in our midst. We have the truth before us, around us, and we don't see it. And we don't get our, maybe we refuse to see it and refuse to respond to it. Or reject it, burn it down. It's sad to see that some churches in Canada, old Catholic churches being burned down. There's an anger fomenting there, very, very sad to see, and it's to do with burial grounds there that have been found, and I just wonder, is the truth being allowed to be properly told? And in fact, somebody made the point that in burning down and just destroying these things, and churches particularly, it's destroying evidence too, because there's written evidence, there's documentary evidence, there's historical evidence, maybe, more evidence to be found there that this is destroying not giving the truth a chance to come out properly there too. So God between us and all harm, these things are not pleasant to see. There's a sort of a spirit of evil prowling around the world seeking the ruin of souls today that it's as if, he's kind of been let loose or something, which really allows us then to reconsider and turn back and just stay very close to our Lord, stay very close to Our Lady to experience their protection against any of these sort of untoward and evil influences. Again, what we're doing there is staying close to the truth, you see. When you stay close to the truth, then falsehood, can't find a place there. Because we're guided by truth. So you see how important this question is and why the Pope knows what he's doing when he's asking us to pray about these things. Now, the bit of time that's left, allow me to share with you again just a little bit more on ad gentes, to the peoples, and our task. Again, this is not the preserve of selected missionaries like those lovely sisters this morning, the servants of the Lord and the Virgin of Matara from Argentina. It's not for us to leave it to wonderful young women like that. We all have a part to play in the mission to the Church. The Church, with great joy, gives thanks for the priceless gift of the priestly vocation which God has given to so many young men from among those peoples, but recently converted to Christ. We see that, of course, in Africa and Asia, places like Vietnam. Extraordinary number of vocations to the priesthood there, and a lovely swell of vocations coming forth from various countries in Africa. Africa, of course, is a vast continent, far greater than Ireland, so we're actually still relatively comfortably off by statistical analysis by way of enjoying a priestly presence still. Now things are changing, but lovely to see these new groups coming in and helping us overcome some of that, bridging that gap for us. For the Church is more firmly rooted in a people when the different communities of the faithful have ministers of salvation who are drawn from among their own members. Very important really to have indigenous clergy. That's why the exit strategy, for want of a marketing expression or business expression, when religious orders go to foreign lands is, we will leave here one day. We're only setting things up or initiating things. We'd like to see the local people take ownership of this. So that's what you're seeing happening. So when bishops, priests and deacons serving their own brothers and sisters, that these young churches gradually acquire a diocesan structure and with their own clergy. These things which have been decreed by this council, this is the Second Vatican Council document now that we're reading from, concerning the priestly vocation and priestly formation, are to be religiously observed wherever the church is being planted for the first time, and also by the young churches. In other words, that, you know, it's only a temporary transitional phase once the faith has been introduced for the first time, and then the local vocations can step in. And you see, vocations to the priesthood and religious life don't come in a vacuum. They come from deeply religious and faith-filled families, generally speaking, or by the grace of God too, but from within a faith community. And so it's important, and the bulk of whom, of course, are lay people. So, you know, the vast majority of the church is the laity, and so as a laity, all indeed have a responsibility in the light of this mission. This is the task. Let me see. Special importance is to be attached to what has been said about closely combining spiritual, doctrinal and pastoral formation, about living a life in accordance with the gospel without any thought of personal or family advantage, about fostering a deep appreciation of the mystery of the church. So when we can live our faith, I suppose like Matthew had to do in his call, you leave everything. We don't become followers of Christ out of self-interest. Sure, we want to get to heaven. I suppose that self-interest may be there. But we're not in it for material gain or a social standing or any of these things. It becomes a life of service. It becomes a way of life and of service, you see. In this way, then, they will learn in a wonderful manner to give themselves fully to the service of Christ's body and to the work of the gospel. So that in our lay apostolate and our lay movements and the various prayer groups and works of evangelization that we belong to or are involved in, vocations can come to fruition. I'm a case in point. I would say, certainly from my own home, there's a lovely faith life there growing up, but through the Legion of Mary, and especially working in London, it most certainly fostered a sense of wanting to give more to the church. You know, that's where vocations arise from, really. They will learn to adhere to their bishop as loyal fellow workers and to collaborate with their brothers and sisters. And to attain this general end, the whole of the student's formation is to be organized in the light of the mystery of salvation as it is revealed in the Scriptures. They must discover and live this mystery of Christ and of human salvation as it is present in the liturgy. So the liturgy and the life of worship of the church sustains and nourishes this calling, because like you heard this morning, Abraham now giving way to Isaac, Isaac meeting Rebekah, and so the call of Abraham being passed on to Isaac, and Isaac and Rebekah then having Jacob and his many sons then, among whom is Joseph, and that leading then into Egypt and Pharaoh, and then Moses. So you see there's that stepping stone. So like this is they were responding to God's call in the Old Covenant, and they renewed that covenant in their liturgical celebration, in the sacrifices that they made to God, and building altars to the honor of God, and prayers and psalms no doubt being composed in honor of God too. That liturgical life gives expression to that as well, you know. So let's come back to this again. It's only a little small mouthful at a time. You can see there's a lot involved in it, but it's very refreshing. And it just shows that indeed how we are living our faith and expressing it is part of the mission life of the church as well. So thanks indeed for listening in, thanks for tuning in, thanks for watching in as well and being part of Radio Maria. I see a number of prayer intentions flowing to us here again today as well. Good, thank you for those too. Now the time is rapidly approaching 12 o'clock, and I thank you again, and may God bless you, and I do hope you have a pleasant day. Do stay with us for our lunchtime rosary. Do stay with us for our programs into the afternoon as well. So now, just coming up to 12 o'clock, we'll pray our midday prayer from week 1 of Friday from the Divine Office, and we'll join together likewise and pray our Angelus after these bells. Thanks, everyone.